In 2020, the Russian magazine Seance devoted an entire issue to the work of Korean director Hong Sang-soo. Vasily Stepanov, editor-in-chief of the magazine, says that this issue was conceived as a kind of encyclopedia on the films of Hong Sang-soo. The task of the issue was to understand his cinematography and consider the formal components of films, aphorisms, zooms, sounds and gestures, humor and the mystery of everyday life. Vladimir Zakharov, one of the best Russian experts in Korean cinema, believes that Hong Sang-soo is the most interesting director of our time. He is an inventor of film language, and it is difficult to evaluate it by one film. You need to watch all of his films. There are two main lines that critics and film scholars follow when trying to appreciate the phenomenon of Hong Sang-soo. The first is to fit it into the existing framework, currents, or to find sources of inspiration, idols and ancestors. Hong Sang-soo was recorded in Asian minimalism to Edward Young and early Kitano. However, in the second half of the 20s, director Hong Sang-soo evolved and got out of this frame. In Europe, he is considered a singer of modern Korean life, an Oriental sage and a Buddhist, and in Korea the same films are considered an imitation of European cinema. Sometimes they look for autobiographical motives in his films, but they don't mean anything in the end. Searching for symbols, signs, and identifying themes in Hong Sang-soo's work will not help to understand him better. The second approach to assessing and understanding Hong Sang-soo's films is to try to highlight his originality. Soul Searching, a collection of academic essays on Korean cinema, compared Hong Sang-soo's stories to the traditional Korean song genre pansori. What they have in common is episodic repetition of the same moments or motifs, neglect of chronological order. The comparison of traditional songs with modern films may not be obvious, but it shows that Hong Sang-soo's identity is not in characters, not in themes, but in form. This may be the editing, selection, and processing of actors' mise-en-scene or original narrative architecture. Only by examining the form and not the meanings, one can understand his cinematic language and appreciate his innovation. We have already noted that one of the key plots that director Hong Sang-soo passes from film to film is the issue of the relationship between men and women. Let's look at how the women's issue in his films changes over the course of a director's development. According to Sergei Dyushin, with the release of The Woman Who Ran, Hong Sang-soo's filmography can be viewed as a story of a woman's journey. For clarity, let's consider the topic on the example of three most important female films. First film is Oh Soo-cheon. Hong Sang-soo's early cinematography was largely sexist and lacked strong female characters. One of the first exceptions is his third film, Oh Soo-cheon. It is no coincidence that a woman's name is in the title. Soo-cheon is a girl who can't let go of her virginity. She is being courted at the same time by two men much older than she is, a married independent filmmaker for whose company she works, and a wealthy gallery owner. For both, she is a vague object of desire. In retrospect, it is difficult to say what exactly the author felt in his heroine Soo-cheon. Did he see her hopeless essence? But Lee In-joo, who played her, will commit suicide 5 years after the film's release. She was only 24. The second film is Ao Son-hee. Only 10 years later, Hong Sang-soo will have another title character, played by actress Chun Yoo-mi. It is she who will first play the feminist director in the film Ok-hee movie and a story writer in the film in another country, and then the main role in Ao Son-hee, an important and turning point for Hong Sang-soo. Son-hee is a student who suddenly returned to the university campus to receive a letter of recommendation to study in America. She is a little reserved, but has her artistic taste. However, her main property lies in the fact that she loves to disappear, go underground, and not let her close friends and lovers know about herself. There are 3 meetings with a professor who has always been in love with Son-hee, with an ex-boyfriend, a director who managed to make a film and dedicate it to Son-hee, and a homebody teacher who left his wife and is also not indifferent to Son-hee. Free and elusive, she still depends on the assessment of the men around her, mainly on the professor's letter of recommendation, which should decide her fate. It is worth mentioning that Hong Sang-soo has changed not only the image of a woman, but also the male heroes. In Ao Son-hee, they already admit that a woman cannot be held back. But Son-hee herself is not Soo-cheon at all. In the finale, when the 3 men meet by chance in the temple park, Son-hee will be far away. She does not belong with them. Her salvation is seen in her disappearance. The woman runs away for the first time. And the third film is The Woman Who Ran. In her first work with Hong Sang-soo, Kim Min-hee played something similar to the mysterious midday object, right now, not after. Everyone there felt in love with her, and right in the frame and after, behind the scenes. Later, metamorphosis will occur with her heroine in Hong's film, literally pushing her out of the frame. First, she flees in Europe from a scandal, alone by the sea at night. Then she is driven from one job, Claire's camera, then from another the next day, both times because of the jealousy of another woman. Then she, seeking salvation from the world, closes in a room of a winter hotel, a hotel by the river. In the film, the woman who ran, her character, named Gam-hee, seems to be not being driven anywhere. It would seem that everything is quite the opposite. Gam-hee is a happy young woman in marriage. She has her own flower shop and a loving husband. They have been together for 5 years and have never parted, even for a day. She talks about it 3 times. There is the concept of true love. And yet it was she, the woman who ran away. Who is she, this Gam-hee? What do we know about it, and what do we need to know about it? Why do we listen to her story 3 times, like the first time? What is the difference between Gam-hee and Son-hee? The fact that it would never occur to her to ask a man for recommendations. Gam-hee does well without them. And Hong Sang-soo no longer needs to split reality by repeating himself with emphasis. All that he did for the previous 10 years is no longer needed. There is nothing of this in The Woman Who Ran, and therefore this is perhaps his strongest director's film.